What does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review, and today I'm very excited to check out Armadora from Blue Orange Games. This is for 2 to 4 players, ages 8 plus. It'll take about 30 minutes to play, and Armadora is, set in a fantasy setting where you are going to be trying to have control over various different areas with gold in them. But honestly, it's an area control game meets a gerrymandering game. If you know anything about politics, that's where you try to split up different areas so that you can win elections, and that's really what this game feels like. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Let's open it up, and I'll tell you what I think. Alrighty then, we're going to take a look at what's going to get inside of Armadora. So first and foremost, we have a handy-dandy rule book, 7 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples, and from page 4 on, it's just the advanced rule set. So honestly, this is all you're going to need, these first 2 pages, in order to learn the basic game. It does a very good job of teaching you the game, and I can teach you how to play right now because it's a very simple game, and then I will show you how the advanced version of the game works. So in Armadora, all you're trying to do is you are trying to have control of more gold than everyone else at the end of the game. So as you can see, we randomly have 8 piles of gold out here. This one has 3, this one has 6 or 7, and it's all random how you set it up, but you are going to have 1 pile of 3, 2 piles of 4, 2 piles of 5, I think 2 piles of 6, and 1 pile of 7 or something like that, and then you're going to randomly distribute them. Next, each player is going to take control of a faction. There's going to be 4 different factions that you'll be playing as. When you're playing the basic version of the game, they are all going to be the same, but once you play the advanced version of the game, they will have their own unique special ability they'll be able to do once or twice throughout the game, and I'll show you how those work in a little bit. But you're going to get this little shield, and this is to cover up all of your tokens right here, because all of your tokens are going to have numbers on the back. Now, the majority of the tokens are going to have the number 1 on the back, but some will have 2, some will have 3, 4, or even up to 5. But you're only going to have 1 5, 1 4, and I believe 1 3, no matter what the player count is. So the higher the player count, the less tokens you're going to get, and you're also going to get lower tokens. So next we have these little guys right here. These are called palisades, and I mentioned this is an area control game because you're going to try and control the areas that have the gold. You are actually going to be creating the various different areas that you're going to try and win as you play the game. So let's just go over a turn and you'll see exactly how it works. Now, we've got our stuff set up. Obviously, we don't have our little shield here because it's just us. And also, you'll notice these circles over here. These are only for the advanced version of the game, which I'll talk a little bit about later. These have been randomly distributed. So on your turn, you get to take 1 and only 1 action. And in the basic game, there are only 2 choices that you can take. You can either lay down one of your tiles face down anywhere on the board that doesn't already have something. So for instance, I could not place it here because there's already a guy there, and I could not place it here because there's already gold there. But any other spot on the map aside from the gold mines, I could place my guy. So you know what? I'll just take this one, this little one right here, and let's see, that's a lot of treasure right there, and I will place it right there. So that is the first action that you could potentially take. And that would be my entire turn. I would just play that down. Now, the other action that you'll be able to take is that you can lay down palisades, and you can lay 1 or 2 palisades on your turn, and this is how you are going to control the area. So let's say I know I really want to go for this. I might do this trick right here. So this is going to make it so that more likely than not, I will be in contention for this big pile of gold right here. Now, there are a couple rules when placing palisades. For instance, you can never go on the outside right here, so you couldn't do that. And also the big rule is that you can never make it so that an area would have less than 4 spaces. So let's just say, that this is what we had right here. Let's just say I completely locked this up just over the course of the game and locked it up and said, haha, this is all my stuff, even though someone could easily come along and do this. So let's say that's what's happening. I cannot do this move right here. That's not a legal move because then this would be a 2 area space and this would be a 3 area space. So in actuality, by doing this, I now know for a fact that this is not going to change, that this is all going to stay as 1 because you cannot make an area smaller than 4. So on your turn, it's just that simple. You're either going to play a tile like so, or you are going to place 1 or 2 palisades. And most of the time, you'll probably want to place 2, but towards the end of the game, it can be a little bit more difficult to place stuff. You're going to continue to do this until both players have passed. And once you pass and say, all right, I'm done placing these tiles, I'm done placing these tiles, then your opponent can do whatever they want. And let me tell you, that's a scary moment right there when you get to that point. You're like, I think I'm done. I think I'm going to pass. And then like, haha, I'm going to do this and this and this and this and start playing stuff. But even if you run out of squares or out of roads, you can still continue to play the other one. So let's say you used up all your dudes, you can still place roads on your turn so you don't have to pass. Palisades, I should say. But anywho, at the end of the game, you are going to flip over all the tiles, and you are going to tally up who has control of the areas that you have created. Whoever has control is going to win the gold. If there's a tie, then you will split it. And if there's a leftover one, then that just goes out of the game. Now, in a 3-player game, that also works the same. Now, a 4-player game is going to have you working with the person across from you. So it's a little bit of it is a team game in that sense. But anyway, whoever has the most gold at the end of the game will be the winner of the game. So let's talk a little bit about the advanced version of the game. So the advanced version of the game is going to add these little circles right here, and it's going to add each faction having their own unique special abilities, and it's also going to add an additional action. So the first additional action is that you can place a reinforcement token, and each player is going to get 1 reinforcement token that they will be able to play out on the board. And the rule is you have to place it in an area that is already full, which means that there's no spots for you to put one of your squares, and that does not have a reinforcement token. And how this works is you'll essentially place this on one of your dudes in that area, and it's going to add +1 to that person, and it also is going to give you the tiebreaker. So if we were to tie, so let's say grand total we both had 5 here, I would win because I use this reinforcement, which means I would get all of the gold. So each player is going to get 1 reinforcement token that will look like that. Now, each player is also going to get either 1 or 2 other fancy circles like these, which will give you a special ability that you can utilize. So for instance, the mage's special ability is that, and how this works as an action is you choose to use your special ability, and then you also get to do a regular turn. So you do your special ability, and then you get to do a regular turn. So that's pretty nice. But the mage is going to get to look secretly at one warrior's value. So I'd be like, ooh, that's a 4. So I really, I've got this on lockdown or something like that. But you'd worry about what you do it, and then you take another turn as well. The orc is going to allow you to place an additional palisade one time. The goblin is going to allow you to place an additional warrior one time, but you have to place that warrior face up. And then the elf has a little bow and arrow where they can shoot other people and make them have -1. So it actually weakens them a little bit. But that, in a nutshell, is what you're going to get inside of Armadora. Alrighty then, Armadora from Blue Orange Games. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the con side, 2 to 4 players, restricted player count. Also, if you're playing 4 players, you have to play as a team, which I'm not the biggest fan of that. It's just such a light, simple game that adding the team element just felt a little bit tacked on. I really liked 2 and 3 players, which I'll tell you about in the pros. And 4 players is okay, and it's a good way to teach other people how to play the game. But for the most part, I was more of a fan of 2 and 3 players. But take that with a grain of salt, because if you like team games, then I think 4 players is something that you might like. Also, the theme is pretty non-existent here. You're playing as mythological creatures, and it's generic fantasy, and you have generic fantasy special abilities. And honestly, I feel like the theme really should have been some sort of political theme. Even if it was like, all these mythical fairy creatures, running for public office, because it really does feel like gerrymandering. That's what it feels like. You're playing down those palisades, and you're trying to split up various different areas and try to make your area better and cut people out, or maybe make it so that one particular area has a lot of people's tokens, so they spend all their tokens there. And the theme and the mechanisms just have a big disconnect. It's like, I understand that these guys are elves and these guys are dwarves, but why are we building fences or something? The theme is completely pasted on. Let's just put it like that. Also, the game is definitely on the lighter side, especially when you're playing the basic version of the game. And even when you add the advanced version of the game, it's still a very light game, which will be a turnoff to some people. If you're looking for something meatier, then this one might not be for you. Last con I have with the game is that the board does not quite lay flat, which really is always one of those pet peeves that bugs me. It's not a huge deal gameplay-wise, but it just bugs me. It's one of those boards where you feel like if you bend it too much, you're just going to snap the dang thing in half. So it is something that I did want to mention, though. Any other cons that I have with the game? No. Moving on to the pros. I was very pleasantly surprised with Armadora. This is one of those games that's been sitting on my shelf for a very long time, and it didn't wow me. I looked at reviews and was like, they're positive reviews overall, but it's like, it's not going to wow anyone. But at the same time, once I got this played, and I got it played, and I got it played, and I got it played, I was like, wow, I really enjoy this game. And I absolutely can recommend Armadora to you if you were in the market for a light fantasy game, because this This game knocks that out of the park, and I really like how this game works. So first and foremost, I really liked it at 2 players. I really liked it at 3 players, and I'd say this is a great light 2-player game. I also think it's the kind of game that, as a basic game, like just as the basic game, not moving in the advanced game, this is a fantastic gateway game. If you're trying to get your couple or a spouse or a friend into gaming, I think this is absolutely the kind of game that could get them into it. It feels a little bit like the dot game, like a gamery version of the dot game, where you draw the lines, then you try to make squares, and you score points for the squares. It feels a little bit like that, but with more gaminess, and I think a lot of people are going to like that. Also, the rules are incredibly well done. It's easy to learn, it's easy to teach. It's the kind of game that you can have up and running in, I don't know, about 2-3 minutes, because it's just, all right, on your turn. You can either do this action or you can do this action. And also, the advanced version of the game is also incredibly simple as well. So once you get done with this game, and the next time you play, you can very easily integrate the special ability, because it's like, all right, here's your special ability, this is what you can do. You also have this recruitment token, which you can do in these certain circumstances, which will bump you up by 1. I liked it best at 2 players, but that being said, I also really enjoyed it at 3 players. So I think it's really good at both player counts. And in the end, do I think this is going to be a game night game for most people? No. The player count is just a little bit too restricted for my liking, and it still is a very light game unless you have a light game night. But as a family game, this is a stellar, freaking outstanding family game that is going to be in my collection for a very long time. I brought it in and played it with my classroom of older kids. And I tell you what, those 9 and 10-year-olds absolutely loved this game. They wanted to play it over and over and over and over again. And it is the kind of game that lends itself to that. It says 30 minutes. I'd say it's a little bit shorter than that, unless, of course, you're playing with 3 or 4 players. But if you're playing 2 players, I'd say it's even shorter than that. And Armadora, in the end, the theme does not come across as much as you would like, but the gameplay, the mechanisms, how easy it is to learn, how easy it is to teach, I think this is a fantastic family game that you definitely might want to have on your shelf. Also, I think, it's a little bit older, a little bit out of print, so you can probably get it for pretty cheap. There's Armadora from Blue Orange Games. Like it an awful lot. Be sure to check this one out if you're in the market for a light family game. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below in the comments below. Let me know. What was the last game that you had on your shelf, that you had there for a very long time, and you're like, yeah, I'll get to it eventually, I'll get to it eventually, I'll get to it eventually. Maybe it was just something you threw in like your cool stuff shopping cart to hit that $100 threshold or something like that, and then you eventually got it played and you're like, why have I not been playing this game for all this time? For me personally, it was this one, the last one, that also had that same effect. I don't know, that's hard. Being a reviewer, I normally try and get stuff to the table. I get a lot of stuff to the table. I'll give you the exact opposite. A game that I've had for a very long time, and I recently also got it to the table, and it didn't wow me, was Caveman Curling from Eagle Griffin Games. So I'll go the opposite way and say that was the one that did not wow me. But let me know in the comments below, what's one that wowed you or didn't wow you? And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.